Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Christopher from our hometown. We're going to start a little slow, going to let a few more people trickle in. And since this has been a series on doing block patterns, I wanted to do a quick touch base just to make sure if you haven't been able to join us or haven't had a chance to see any of the previous webinars, just to do a little introduction touch base on the block editor itself. So let's actually come back over here. I'm on the dashboard for one of our staging sites. And basically, anytime you're up here and you want to create a new article, if you just go ahead and click Add New Article, for most of our customer sites, this is going to take you into the normal classic editor, which is the single pane. So let's even just start there. We'll act as if we're going to create a new article. And so this is all of the normal classic editor things that you're familiar with. But instead, I'm going to hit back, and on this, if you, instead of clicking directly on the button, there's a little drop down here. You can disregard the site origin page builder. That's a kind of a legacy design layout system that we really don't use too much. But what we're interested in here is the block editor. So under Add New Article, little drop down here, just click on Block Editor, and we're going to see a completely different interface, very different. But a lot of things are still the same. You still have a main content area. You've got a sidebar with some your categories and things like that. Scrolling down, you've got your bylines and subheads. So that's all very similar to the classic editor. But what we're going to be getting into is, instead of necessarily just looking at, I think I've got, yeah, here's an article opened up in the classic editor with some content in it. And so you can see you've got all your images and captions and everything hooks up just like that. Now let's look at that same article over in the block editor. And in this case, all I did was, actually, let me be very specific here. Here's that that story here. So in addition to what I was showing with the add new article, when you're actually looking at your article list, and let's say you started a story in the classic editor and you want to take advantage of some of the block editor things that we're going to be covering, you can choose which editor to open a story in directly from this little pop-up link menu that you see below the headline of each one. So if you just click on the headline, most of our customers is going to take you right into the classic editor, especially if that's where you created the initial article. But if you do want to see what it looks like and then do some further editing in the block editor, you can always just click on the little block edit link right here. And that is what we're looking at in this other tab when it loads. There we go. And so when you do open up an article that was created in the classic editor, you end up with an article consisting of one big block. And this is even called, let me open up the sidebars here. This is even called a classic block. So you get the same kind of text formatting tools and things like that. But if we want to take advantage of the block editor and the modularity, you can simply just click the Convert to Blocks button. And that's going to take all of this content. And I'm going to open up our list view. This is with the line menu here. And you can see now that the images and the paragraphs and everything now have their own containers for a block. So the image is its block. Each of these paragraphs are a block. This one here has is kind of a formatted one. So this entire list is in a single block, those kind of things. And since I've got this open here, let me do a quick run through on the interface. Once again, the main content is here. On the right, when you select a block, you're going to get all of your settings for the block over here on the right, including typography things, etc. If you click on an image, you can click on your blocks either in the list view or in the content view itself. And as you see, the sidebar will update to give you all the image options in this case, so we can even like change the aspect ratio and things like that. So you can go right in and start taking advantage of those things there. See, and if there are any questions, please feel free to toss them in the chat. Make sure you're sharing them with everybody. And I've got my co-hosts and panelists, Vera and Tyler, who will keep an eye on that and help me out so I can make sure I don't miss any questions. So I just kind of wanted to go through a little brief thing on the differences of how you get into and out of the block editor and the classic editor in your normal workflow that you may be accustomed to. Okay, but the topic today is patterns. Okay, so what are block patterns? Block patterns are just groups of blocks that they all work together to create a single unit or a layout or a component, you might say, or in the parlance of WordPress, they call these patterns. And some of the benefits here, because what this allows you to do is if you create this one component, WordPress gives you some ways of managing that, where normally you can copy and paste content from one article to another, but with block patterns, it actually gives you a place to save these, kind of like a Creative Cloud library, where you might save a specific picture layout with a caption styling and your colors and any kind of other things. And you'd have that in the library. And anytime you need that particular use case, you can just drag and drop or click and find it and put that into your layout. These patterns work nearly identical to that. And one of the other reasons, building on the library idea, is you can ensure your brand or design consistency so that no one has to remember hex codes for colors and things like that. You can set up different patterns to contain images or little mini galleries, all kinds of different things. We'll look at different applications of these, call to actions, and etc. I will show there are some third-party places where you can get pre-designed patterns that you can just simply copy and paste into your layout to help you kind of get started. And the other things that are really helpful with patterns is you can create like little small building blocks. It's a pattern like, let's say, a single person profile, and then you can drag and drop and put 3 or 4 of those in there, update them, customize them with the individual person profile, and then you can use the other block of features to then create some sort of more complex layouts out of multiple of those patterns. And we'll look at a few things along the way like that. Let's see. So let's take a look at where everything lives according to blocks. So from now on, we're going to be mainly in the block editor, because that's where these things live. So instead of just going through this on a slide, I put this in as a reference, but let's actually go look at it in action. So let's start. I was in the article list creating a new blank block editor post here. So normally when you're working with the block editor and you want to add a block for paragraphs or the defaults, things like that, you always come up to this blue plus or this kind of grayed out hover blue plus to add a block. So these are the 2 most common ways of adding a block. If you click this one, it gives you a little popover with a few of your most recently used blocks, so that can be very helpful that way. You also have a search here where you can just type in things and it'll auto-populate with things that are related to your query. The other way of adding a block is over here above the list view, which I was describing before. We click this one and it changes the whole left panel to a selection of all of the available blocks. And this is a lot of what we were going through last week, is finding these blocks, using them, putting them in, moving them around and things like that. Today, we're going to look at this second tab called Patterns. And so what we're going to do is when you click on patterns, you see all these categories. You don't see anything yet. So you want to go ahead and just click on one of these categories. I'll do all So we'll just basically see everything that's just kind of in here by default as part of the WordPress theme we're using. And these most recent ones are some that I created for the demo, so they show at the top, the most recent ones. But if we scroll down, there's tons of these, and you get a little look-see at what it might look like. And as you hover over it, it may be a little hard to read, but there's a tooltip that appears below. So this is a full-width, vertically aligned headline on the right with a description on the left. So it kind of gives you a little sense of what it does. And all you need to do is just click on that, and the entire pattern with all its nested and integrated blocks will just be tossed right into to your article. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to close the block inserter so I can take a look here. I'm going to reopen the list view, and here you go. So full width, that was actually the name of the pattern they gave it. And then what we want to do is if you come over to the left, you can see there's a little arrow, and that indicates that there's blocks within the block. And also you'll get used to some of the icons, like this square with the little ribbon on it. That's a cover block. If I actually even click on this with the sidebar open, you can see this is a cover block here. And then there's a row block below it. I'm going to open that up. And then there's some groups in here. There's a button and another group. So let me just click through these so you can see what how they correspond. So this first paragraph is the little description here. Obviously, the button is the button. And then this other group is this fun text. They're using one for the black dark text and another paragraph tag here. As you can see, big big font size, bold, uppercase, all that kind of stuff. And so you can then, now that this has been placed, you can just go in here and change anything you need. One of the most obvious things, of course, would be to click on the cover block in the settings. We've got our general settings, and then this little two-colored circle here is your styles for the selected block. And if I click on that, there's where our background color lives, or our overlay color in this case. And so one of the first places you might want to start is I just want to change the color. So let's even be fancy here, and we'll turn this into a green gradient, something like that. And now all of a sudden we can't read this text. So I'm going to click on that text, and I can even come in here and I can make sure that that text is black, things like that. And of course, we can change this to any kind of content for whatever you might want to use this for. This is kind of just a little product call to action block, something like that. So let me come back, and now I've shown you this, we'll kind of go through this just to make sure to reinforce it here, that you can add a pattern either by clicking the plus and I'll even show you that too, because if you because here, when you click here, you don't have the pattern tabs. You don't have the block tabs or anything like that. But if you have a block and you remember, or a pattern, and you remember its name, like I created one for an article sponsor. So if I type in sponsor, the patterns will still pop up in here. There's just not the same panel interface. If you do click Browse All here, what that's going to do is it's going to switch you over to the panel interface. It'll even move the search query you did, and it'll help you find that block. So just wanted to point that out. If you get used to using some of these patterns, sometimes it's easier to kind of find everything here with the search. But you can still do a search and find patterns directly from the main content area. And so, yeah, we've got that. We went over the pattern categories, and those are assigned when patterns are created. So we'll definitely get to how to create your own patterns in a moment. I just wanted to kind of show you how to where a lot of these pre-made patterns live in this directory, so you can just go in, toss one into your new block article or post, and just play with it without having to worry about breaking anything, or it also gives you some interesting ideas on how certain blocks function with layouts and things like that. And as you saw, I just clicked on it to insert it into the main content area, and then I can customize it as we'd like. All right. Our next step then is, let's say you make you even use one of these pre-made blocks and you make a bunch of changes to it, and you're like, well, that would be a really useful block to create a pattern back of. So you basically take a pre-existing pattern, do all your customization, and you want to now save it as your own pattern. Okay, so build your layout obviously is the first. This can be done from scratch, or as I was saying, you can use a customized pattern that you found in the directory, no problem. So let's then I'll show you. You need to select basically all the blocks that make up the pattern. There's a couple of ways of doing that. And one thing I'll come back over to, yeah, let's come back over to a block post that has a few more items in it so I can show you how this the selection works. While I'm here, I'll show you this three-dot menu. I want to go to full screen, so that's going to hide the dashboard menu and give me a little more space. This is over here to kind of give you some interface options. So there's a couple of ways. Let's say I basically just want this image and this heading. Completely arbitrary, just for the sake of the demo. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking on the image, I'm holding down Shift and then clicking on the heading. And as you can see, it's selecting all three of those, which means I'm selecting more than I wanted. Let me try that again. This is a good reason to always have the list view open if you have space, because you can immediately see what you are or are not selecting. So once again, I'll do this, hit Shift. It's kind of giving me a head problem here, isn't it? There we go. And so this is going to give you the same block toolbar that would normally be hovering above a block. But in this case, with multiple blocks selected, it even tells you with this tooltip, that's what this icon means. And so if we wanted to create a pattern just out of this without doing anything else, you would just click on the three-dot menu and there's Create Pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that so you can see it gives you a couple of options here. We can give it a name. So this is image with heading. And I like to, and as you saw from what the pattern I put in, these names are usually as descriptive of what's in the pattern versus how you might use it. So you can kind of go either way on that. That's a bit of a semantic idea. And then under categories, this has the categories that have already been put in here. You can obviously add any that you want. Let's see. What do I want to put this? Let's just put this under media. And you can also add as many categories as you want to kind of like tag these to make them easier to find. Like, let's say we can say this functions as a banner as well. Now I'm going to uncheck synced because we'll definitely touch on this and get into much more detail, but a synced pattern is one that is created once and is used in multiple places. And if you go and edit the original one, all of those changes will be propagated out to any place that the pattern is used. So I'll show you some specific instances where that's very helpful. But if you just want to have a pattern that's saved in a directory and you want to be able to add it into a new post at any time and then customize it, you don't want to make it synced because you don't want those changes going elsewhere. You only want them on your local change. So I will uncheck synced and then I'll click add. And this will take just a second just to drop those in. So unsynced pattern created, image with heading. And now if I just come down to, let's say I want to use this below this table, I can select the table. And then another fun thing, once again, if you click the three-dot menu, whatever block you're selecting, you have the option to insert a block before or after to make sure that you don't accidentally add a block and it's hiding at the bottom of a huge article. So I'm just going to click Add After, and all that's going to do is just give me a place to add. I'll show you one more shortcut. In addition to the blue plus here and the blue plus here, as you see, it's giving me this tip. If I type a /, it's going to give me a little search thing. So what did I call that? I called that image with heading. So there it is. I can type the image with heading and it goes through, and there is that pattern. You can see it's got this different icon with the two diamonds overlapping. And so if I just click that, there it is. It's the same image, which I can now replace, and the same heading, which I can now update. But it's the instant two blocks that are part of that pattern get tossed right in here. And as you see, they're not grouped together or anything because I didn't put them in a group before I made a pattern. It's just that collection of blocks gets tossed in when you add that pattern. So another way, besides just clicking and selecting multiple blocks or doing the shift click, I went over, you can also select multiple blocks in the list view as well. So you can even, let's see, you can select multiple ones here, and you can do the same thing. You see how the toolbar pops up, and you can do your create pattern. Now, one of the things that we had really been looking at is actually looking at grouping content. So if we take that same content, this is just the image and the heading below it. Instead of going and creating a pattern directly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a group first. This isn't going to change the layout. It's just going to create a container around a container block around these two items, the image and the heading. So if I do that, you'll see over here in the list view, now I have a group. And if I twirl that down, it still has the image and the heading. While I'm here, I'll point out that any block, since these just say paragraph, but the headings actually have the text of the heading, so that can be very helpful in helping you navigate. But if you've created a group like this and you want something more easily identifiable, also under the three-dot menu for the group, either in the list view or over here in the toolbar, you can come down here, and it's actually right above the create pattern. You can just rename this. So I'm going to create, this will just be image plus heading. Doesn't have to be the same. And you hit save. And now you see how this group is image plus heading. And one thing that makes this very cool is if we create a pattern out of the group. So let's do that. Another image with a heading. And I'll just put this in banners. And once again, I'm going to not have this be a synced block. And if I add that, I just want to show you the difference of when you import them, how pre-grouping can be very helpful. So let me just jump all the way down here to the bottom. So much stuff. Okay, so we're outside of this, and now once again I will. Well, actually, this time I'll use the block inserter over here and patterns. And one of the categories here is not an assigned category, but just a default place where all of the things that you create yourself will be in the My Patterns list. So here's the first one I made and the second one I made. They look identical. But when I add the one that I created from a group first, and now we've inserted it down here. I'm going to go back to the list view. Now you can see right here, it's got the same group name, and everything is in a group. So what that makes it much easier to treat that as a component if it's in a group. Because when we imported that before, it just imported the image and the heading as individual blocks wherever we inserted that pattern. This one, if you group the blocks first and then create a pattern, it kind of keeps it grouped as its own functional thing, and then it allows you to move it as a single unit and things like that. But still go in and edit the individual blocks within the pattern. Okay, let's see if anything's been popping up question-wise. No. All right. Let me come back to my reference here. So these are the main ways of creating your block patterns. You got to build the layout, you select the blocks, and then I've already gone through these steps as you saw. The options menu with the three dots, either on the hovering toolbar or in the list view. You can find the create pattern option, and then you can give it the name, the category, and this is where we come across the synced options, which will be the next step that we're going to discuss. But I wanted to take a quick breather and see if there were any questions. Or Vera or Tyler, did you have anything you wanted to add? We can take a quick check-in with you guys.
Yes, actually, I had something. You had
Perfect.
mentioned about using the patterns and what you would use them for. One idea I was thinking is if you didn't want to use ad rotate, you could have a sponsor, like you had the article sponsor, and you could have it laid out within your articles. That and you would sync it, and that way, if the sponsor changes, it would make it easy, wouldn't it?
Perfect. Yep, that is exactly what I'm going to be touching on next once when we talk about synced patterns. So
Gotcha.
why don't we do that? So let me come back to the reference and let's talk about synced patterns. So these are exactly the same as the other patterns. And one of the reasons we wanted to kind of do this big block editor overview is because we have recently rolled out the latest update to the WordPress core platform. And previously, these were called reusable blocks. And this actually makes a little more sense with this synchronization thing. So the blocks I was just showing you are just your standard patterns. When you insert the standard pattern, you get an independent copy. Emphasize that you get a copy of the pattern in your current story. And any changes that you make to that copy are only going to be on that copy. The original pattern is untouched. And a lot of the default patterns that come with the theme, most of those are not going to be synced. I'm pretty sure there's actually not that many sync patterns that are in there by default. This is much more for you to utilize to take advantage of the patterns and the reuse and what we're gonna talk about with being able to update a sync pattern in a central place and have it reflected in all of the instances where it pops up. And I want to emphasize the difference between a copy and an instance, because the instance is basically going to link back or still have a connection to the original sync pattern always. You can break that if you need to, but for the most part, you're going to use the sync patterns for the sync patterns and the standards for the standards. But if you are using the sync patterns, any edits you make, even if it's in the block editor or I'll show you the pattern editor itself, when you save the article that contains a synced pattern, it's going to make sure that it'll ask you to confirm that when you're editing. And I'll go through a little bit of that as we take a look in more detail at these synced patterns. And once again, here's a couple of those examples, as Vera was mentioning, promotional banners, some disclaimer things, contact, call to action. These would be things that would basically you'd want them to appear the same everywhere they appear, but you don't necessarily want them to appear everywhere, like as part of a theme or a widget that's just going to appear on every page. In this case, you can be much more targeted, and if you have a specific a sponsored story perhaps and you want to include the this month's sponsor for that that was kind of the example I was going to use.
I have a
And this,
question
sure.
for you, Christopher. So let's say, for example, that you wanted to do a donation push. That's something that you may not use all the time, but for a certain part of the year. Like, for example, one of our publishers, I think they usually do it in August, from August to November. So you would use that block in the event that you were going to be pushing for donations during that time frame and use that pattern, right?
Sure, especially if you're going to only use like let's say it's a seasonal one and you want to create a sync pattern for seasonal donation campaigns. You could use the same synced pattern, or could create one for each season. It would kind of be up to you. But if you want to just for each season, you'd basically go back to that synced pattern and update it for spring. Change the colors, change that, and then everywhere that pattern was used will then reflect the new design and the new colors. And that's one of the keys to using the synced patterns, is that you don't have to go find where it was used. You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. You just have to decide that this is an appropriate use for sync pattern. This is where we'd like to use it. And then whenever that sync pattern gets updated periodically for its use case, then every instance of that synced pattern will be updated all at once. So it just saves a ton of time from having to go through or many people may not even want to try that because they're afraid that you'll end up having to go back through 10 stories for that month and going edit something if you want. And the other thing is if it's older content, but it still has the sync pattern. So this is a story that was published in the wintertime, but it has a donation for that season. Once spring comes along and you update the sync pattern for springtime, that winter story will get the updated pattern for anyone who happens to come across that story. They'll get the relevant seasonal donation because it's sync pattern, and it'll be updated everywhere each time you change it. So why don't we take a look at that?
That'll make it nice because you don't have to create it each time, right?
Exactly. So in this case, I am using an article sponsor as the my little demo example. So let's just go take a look at that real quick. See where I even have it. Actually, it doesn't matter. Let's just start a new one. Or I will actually just delete this block that we were playing with. And what I'm going to do, I'll use that slash and hit my sponsor, article sponsor. Now, take a look at this looks way different, right? We've got purple. There's purple and there's nothing in the toolbar. That means you're using a sync pattern. They want to make sure you're very, very aware of that. So if you want, and I'm in the block editor, so you can update a synced pattern. Let's say you were working on your first spring story. You add the article sponsor to it, and then you can edit the original right here. And what that's going to do is open up the pattern editor. This is the first time we've seen it. It looks very similar to the block editor, but it's not. It only, over here in the list view, it only contains the blocks that are in the pattern. And I hope this is not too hard to see. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Up here at the top, this title field, which used to show the headline or the name of the article, is now showing the name of the pattern, and it has a back button. So I'm gonna click this real quick. So this is no title for the article. This means you're in the article side of the block editor. But if I come back and click Edit Original, that changes, and now I'm in just the specific editor for this pattern. And the save button is for this pattern. And it even has, here's your sync status. So you know everything is going on. You can even do some changes like, changing your categories. And let's see, you can rename it and duplicate and things like that as well. So if we, I'm actually, instead of doing a full edit here, I'm going to show you another place where you can edit. So I'm just going to hit back. I'm not going to make any changes here. I'm just going to put this into an article. So we've got a synced article sponsor block or pattern in this, this blank article. Now, if I come back to the dashboard, there's a place we haven't visited yet, and now is the time to go visit that. So let's see. And go back to the dashboard homepage, because the page optimizer hides a few. So if you ever missing a menu you're looking for, just come back to the main homepage dashboard. That way the optimizer won't have anything turned off in that case. So where we're going to go to Appearance, and right here is Patterns. So I'm going to click on that. And this is going to bring us to another page that we've never looked at before. Completely different interface, looks very different. It's basically just kind of an interface just for the patterns that's similar to that sidebar directory, but this has a bit more management things. You can see what's synced and what's not. Here's that article sponsor with the synced, and also you've got and I will point out that when you come to this pattern directory, you're only going to see your patterns. You're not going to see all of the default theme patterns. Those only live in the block editor. And when you add patterns from the block editor. Here, these are only the ones that I've made as part of putting my my demo together. So what we can do is this gives you a centralized place where you can find your patterns, and in this case, your synced patterns, and you can go to this three-dot menu here, and we can edit the pattern here. And once again, this is very similar to the pattern editor that we were just looking at from the block editor side of things, except up here you have the pattern name, but there's no back because we're not launching this. We're not coming here from the block editor. We're coming here directly from the pattern directory. So there's no context of an article here. This is just purely working with the patterns. And I'll do a very simple change. Once again, we'll do a color change here. Okay, and so now we've got a dramatically different color scheme, and all we need to do is hit save, and we get a little pop-up that says the pop-up has, or the pattern has been updated. Okay, now I'm gonna reload this. I actually want to check and see. Yeah, so let's let's just go back and we'll add that new pattern. Sorry about that. Let me get rid of this guy again. And let's go back to our patterns. And we'll go to my patterns again. And oh, would you look at this? We have new colors, just like that. So this, and this once again is the same. It has the edit original and all of that, but basically this allows anyone to go into the that appearance and patterns link and into that directory, and you can go and swap out your sponsor, change your colors, any of that kind of stuff. You save it over in the pattern editor, and it will be updated in any of the published materials, or in this case, I just re-added it, and it pulled in the latest version. Let me do a quick demo here. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this real quick. And maybe I think this will be even a better demo. So I'm going to now view the article. Super basic. Okay, so here it is, just living in an article. Now let's come back to I'm back. I'm just switching back, and as you see, this is from the pattern directory. There's no back here, so I'm just editing the pattern directly. And let's change that overlay one more time to something dramatically different. Okay, maybe that's not so dramatic, but that's okay. And now, once again, I'm going to hit save. And our pattern's been updated. Now, let's go back to the story that we published. And I'm going to refresh this. Bingo. As you see, the changes are propagated immediately. So this is one of the keys, because these synced patterns they're somewhat niche because you really want the same thing to appear in multiple different places, and you also want a really easy centralized way of editing that one thing that's going to appear in all those different places. And that's why we're looking at sponsorships, like this could easily be something that you use when you don't necessarily need to use Add Rotate Pro, as Vera was mentioning, something like an article injection where it'll kind of just appear a few ways down in the article, all this kind of stuff. If you're using a synced block like this, you can still put the link to the advertiser, which actually I have a link to the advertiser right here. As you can see that works. And that link can be a tracking link. It's not going to track clicks like Add Rotate Pro does, but if you're using some UTM campaign link or something like that to track clicks, or even if you're just tracking where it's coming from, you can still get some metrics here. And the other thing is, you can also consider every time someone visits this particular story or article, that's going to be an impression of this ad. They're going to see this ad when they read that story, and so you could also look at the viewer numbers on a particular page to see how many times maybe that sponsored ad is actually being served, basically to how many people are reading that article. Let's see. So that's one of the little bits of magic, is you can just do edits in here with your graphics, your links, any kind of thing you want to do. And then once you save it here, it's immediately reflected anywhere that block has been placed.
Can anybody use patterns that you create, or do they have to be synced in order for other people to use them?
They should be, well,
I was thinking of a case and scenario, like let's say Tyler and I are adjusting a page, and he created something, and I want to use it.
As far as I know, if you've got editor level stuff, so if you can create a post, you can create a pattern, would be the way I would say it. And what I would need to clarify though is that if Tyler creates a whole bunch of synced patterns, can Vera use them? I'm going to go with a yes on that, because that would be a silly thing if it wasn't working that way.
Awesome.
I don't have a quick demo to verify that, but I would absolutely question if it didn't work that way. There should be, there really shouldn't be any hiding of the blocks in that particular case. Okay.
I didn't mean to throw you a curveball.
No. That's
with a lot of publishers.
Well, it's it is a shared library. As far as it's a completely shared library. Yeah. Okay, so we've looked at editing the patterns from the block editor, getting into the pattern editor, and then getting back out. And then we've also looked at this next one where we go into appearance and patterns to that specific pattern directory. And you can edit both synced and non-synced patterns here. Let me go back here. So these don't, you can, so let's just say you did want to just come in here and build a pattern that isn't necessarily associated with an article yet, but you get a commission, or your editor wants the designer to create a really cool side-by-side gallery layout for an upcoming a publication that needs that. So, something like a grid of people or something, anything like that. You can come in actually and just create a new pattern right here. And you give it the same thing. So let's say this will be a new gallery. And I'll even give it the gallery. Once again, this is not going to be a synced one, because I want them to be able to basically just use the layout and adapt it to whatever the new content is going to be. And so we'll add that. And what's cool here is we can use all of the blocks and all of the covers. And how about this? You can even put patterns within patterns, of course. So you can nest patterns and all kinds of things, as long as you don't, if you're not kind of mixing and matching the sync patterns too much, it's fine, because once again, all of these are just collections of blocks. But instead, let's go back and look at this version of the Big John call to action that I made. And so I just updated this, customized it, and made it to a discount coupon for a tractor sales company, just for whatever reason. And then let's see, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. Yeah. And then let's say we can, then we hit save. And then where's okay, I guess I forgot how, oh, there it is. I'm sorry. This little guy here, forgive me. This little guy here is usually your back. So when I edited that, this is you hover it back over it and it opens the navigation. I missed that one there. So that's how you get back to the directory when you're editing a pattern. So you can come in here and you can basically create some layouts from scratch, play around with the different blocks completely outside of the context of working on a story, just to test some things out. And then these will be available anytime you actually are in a block editor and you want to go and use some of your new patterns. They'll just always be here. I'm kind of getting through most of the mechanics, so why don't I open it up to you guys for any questions, and also kind of just some examples if you want to see some more examples of putting things into and out of patterns. Oh, I know what I'd saved this for last. Okay. So what if these patterns, there's a few in here that are just built in. I don't know, what does this look like? Maybe there's 64 patterns in here. A lot of them are image based, different layout based. These are some that I've made. If I come back to my notes here, all the way back to the beginning, why use block patterns? I wanted to touch on the third party. This will be a perfect end up. Thank you. I'll wrap up with this. If you want to find another source of these patterns outside of the ones that are just built into the theme, the main WordPress.org site, where all the plugins are hosted, updated, all that kind of stuff, they actually have a pattern directory. And so here it is. It's WordPress, and I have this linked in our blog post. But basically, there's, let's see, 2,000 patterns, and you can search for different things you might want to use. But I just wanted to show you how these might work. As you can see, some of the ones that are included with the themes are here. Actually, I think because I have this filtered to curated, this is probably exactly the same group that we have on the core site. But if we come down here, there's community, and these are, I'll apply that. And these are user submissions. Oh, look at this one. Okay, so you click on this and someone's created kind of a, 3-column background, shop now, all these kind of cool things. You can do a quick preview in a couple of different sizes. And then right up here is copy pattern. So I'm going to copy that. And this is just basically a description of which patterns are used and all that kind of stuff. So if we just come back to a blank article here, all I'm going to do, I hit that button that said copy pattern, and now I'm going to paste it right in. And because there's going to be some differences in WordPress versions of people who are building this and things, don't be surprised if you see something like this. This basically just means the block editor has come across some code that it doesn't have anything to do with. And if you just click attempt recovery, more often than not, it will fix it. And you may have to do that a couple of times depending on how the third party set it up. So I did want to put this in last with a caveat, because these aren't as quick and easy, and you may have to do a couple of extra steps to make sure that if you copy something from the directory, that it comes in completely useful. And really, if you just go ahead and let the block editor do its thing with attempting the recovery, we do get the entire pattern. Let me open up the list view. And so you can see all of the stuff that they've used to build this, a bunch of column stuff, 3 columns. They've got a cover handling the background image. And then they've got, let's see, yeah, this is a paragraph here. We've got the buttons and things like that. And because this was just copied in, it doesn't exist on your site. Except in this one place. So what you may want to do is take this group, and if you really like this is a third-party one you copied in, you think you may want to use it somewhere, you can immediately just come into the 3-dot menu. Let's give it a name. The 3-column cover. We'll rename that, and then we'll create a pattern. And we'll do that as an about. And I'm not going to sync this, of course. And then we can now add that to our personal pattern directory library. So if you do want to go and play around a little bit, and now you can see my patterns now has this new one in here that I found from the directory over on WordPress.org. So I encourage you to go take a look. There's, like I said, there's like 3,000 over here, and there's a couple of hoops to go through to make sure that if there's any little errors in the HTML that gets pasted in, that the block editor, as you see, will do a recovery. And I don't think I've ever run into anything being completely broken. And you basically end up with the same layout. It's this layout. Okay. So let me come back over here, and I think that pretty much sums up everything we've been looking at. We want to speed things up. We want to create consistency. We want to get you off the ground running with pre-made patterns, and then you can use combinations of these patterns, create more complex layouts, and then also being able to take advantage of sync patterns where some of these patterns you want to be able to reuse, edit once, and have all of those changes be reflected for things like sponsorships and calls to action. So if there are any final comments or questions, we're right at coming up on 4 to the hour now. And so I don't want to take up any more time than we have today. We will be putting this up as a recording at some point this afternoon with some chapters and some summary stuff. And this is also attached to a blog post here, but similar thing. And basically this goes through everything I went through, even a lot of the verbiage I just used for the slide deck and wanted to take you through. So we'll send this out, and once I get the webinar edit, I'll embed the webinar edit here in the top too, so you can have a nice place to refer to those. So if there are any other questions or comments, Vera, Tyler, before we head out today.
Think that was great. Thank you very much, Christopher. And I will be sending a link out with that recording once it's ready to everyone who attended. And I'll also include a link to our previous block editor presentations if you'd like to kind of get some more background on how all that works.
Yeah, this was the one we did.
Too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
This is the one we did last week. So I've already got the YouTube in here. So you can just go watch this on YouTube, and it's got all the chapters to help you jump around if you just want to do a refresher on a certain feature or something like that. So we'll make sure these are all available to you guys. And once again, we really appreciate the engagement and coming and just checking things out with us and learning. And we learned so much from building these and sharing with you guys, our customers. So thank you so much for your attention, your consideration, your time. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Christopher. That was fantastic.
All right, everybody have a great
holiday weekend.
That's
yes.
true. Yep, holiday weekend. Everybody have a great one. I hope the weather's nice and the sun's shining.
All right. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
All right.
Bye.